Hey everybody. Hi. Oh, there we go. Hello. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My name's Mariah West. I head up our partner marketing and global marketing programs at Zerto. I'm really happy to chat with each and every one of you today. I've been at Zerto for a little over 6 years, which in Zerto years is a long time, and seen our company evolve quite a bit, gone from working with many of you one-on-one to building teams that build tools and resources and training that hopefully you guys use. So it's really exciting for me to chat with you guys today. Just a couple of quick operational notes before we get started. Jason and Andy, do you mind raising your hands? Hi guys. So those two gentlemen back there are not only awesome cloud sales folks and might be your reps or your reps managers, so I'd get to know those two guys, but they also have microphones. So we are actually recording the session today for prosperity. So if you don't mind, this is intended to be discussion, Q&A. It's less a presentation and more of a conversation and training around how you take your current message on Zerto, your Zerto-powered service, and kind of change the script a little bit, elevate the conversation with your customers, and speak more about resilience. So please ask questions throughout. Just raise your hand so we can bring you a mic. So with that, I'll introduce John Reynolds, our VP of Cloud Sales.
Thanks, Mariah. Appreciate it. Like Mariah said, and do we have the...
We do.
Thank you very much. Like Mariah said, we're going to keep it as interactive as we can. How many of you have been using the new messaging? The messaging you saw that Zeev was just going through? Anybody? Okay, two people. So what we're going to do today is we're going to, and I'm assuming the rest of you have been kind of using the old messaging and you're familiar with that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through sort of the old and the new. All right, what I want to do when you leave here, I want you to be trained to give the message out to your customers, to your prospects, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to go over a little bit about IT resilience, okay? I'm going to give you context about how it all came about, all right? Because if you've known us for a number of years, we've been doing hypervisor-based replication. That was our message. That was our message to the market, right? And now we have a new message. It's IT resilience. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of background on it so you understand the positioning so that when you're talking to your customers, you can elevate the conversation. You can start to get to the next level of conversation to really help yourselves, one, obviously close better, but two, really to try and get more of the market, okay? More of the VMs that are in the market. And speaking about in the market, DR as a service, in and of itself is a big one. It's a $3 billion market, and that's huge. We, everybody here at Zerto, and I hope all of you, want every last one of that $3 billion. And that is the traditional market that we went to with our hypervisor-based hypervisor-based replication technique. But as you heard Zeev say, there's a convergence. There's a convergence around a couple of things. There's a convergence on the typical disaster recovery, what we've been going after. But there's a blurring of the lines in the marketplace where backup is starting to come into the discussion a lot more. And of course, the whole hybrid cloud discussion is coming to the conversation every single time. The IT resilience platform, which we trademarked, the IT resilience platform is to capture those customers that are in the zone. They're thinking about disaster recovery. They're thinking about backup. They're thinking about the hybrid cloud story. The IT resilience platform is designed to allow you to help your customers make the decisions. Hopefully, to go with Zerto as the IT resilience platform, all right? But it's helping you guide you. And I'd love to say that it's only about helping customers decide. It's really about, it's a $14 billion market. DR as a service, $3 billion, $14 billion when you combine these markets. So it's a much larger market segment that we can all go after, okay? And so now I'm going to get into the presentation that Mariah's going to tell you how to download, and you can get it and you can distill it and you can put it into your own presentations. But the way we set the stage here is we set the stage that there's, as you heard Zeev say, a digital transformation going on. And that's key to the message going forward. And that digital transformation, as Zeev mentioned, is happening at all the customers. And customers are spending a lot of money on it, 1.7 trillion. And I noticed that Zeev had a slide that said 2 billion, or 2 trillion, and this is 1.7 trillion. We got to sync up, Mariah.
We missed some.
Okay, we missed something somewheres. The point is, it's a lot, okay? And our customers are actually going out there and they're actually having to make decisions around that. And it's important to understand, or to help your customers understand, that you know why it's going on. The transformation's going on not just because it's the next greatest thing, but as Zeev mentioned, it's a profitability thing. All the customers are trying to get more profitable. They're trying to increase their revenue, differentiate themselves from the marketplace. And it's all about the end user experience, the customer experience, right? The end user experience and the way that people consume is all about why they're trying to get into a digital transformation, and they want to drive their speed to market. Speed to market means it's out there faster, means increased profitability, which means their users are happy. So it's a cycle. And those are the kind of the reasons, but the requirements or the elements of an IT resilient platform is that it's always got to be on. It's got to be on 24/7. And for the business to adopt it, it's got to reduce the cost and complexity. It's got to be easy to get into it. So if I'm doing a digital transformation and I'm going through the motions and it's hard, it's going to be slow. It's not going to be a rapid go-to-market technique. So it's got to be easy to get into the system, and it's also got to be able to move to the cloud. And the move to the cloud sort of thing, it kind of hangs out there, and you're like, well, why does it have to move to the cloud? Why is that important? It's really important. It's really important because every customer is thinking about it. It's on everybody's mind. It's a critical decision point for the customers to be able to move into cloud resources. 70% of the customers are going to have a hybrid cloud strategy this year. Really big number. 88% of the customers are talking cloud first.
You know, Don, just to interject here for a second, how many of you in the room have been partnered for a year or less? 2 years or less? 3 years? 4 years? 5 years? If you have experience with Zerto messaging in that first slide that Don showed, we started with that hypervisor-based replication message. And it was a lot about speaking to the technologist. I think you need to move away from
Yeah, I'll move over here.
Speaking to the technologist within the organization, right? The person that has the pain. So a lot of the evolution of how Zerto is changing its story and its message to market is to help you guys capture those 3 bubbles that Don is talking about. We recognize that your business is a lot more than just DR. There's a lot more opportunity to talk to customer about automation, about movement and migration to the cloud, about orchestration, about replication, right? Also about backup use cases. So the shift is both to align to our vision from a product strategy standpoint, but also to enable you guys to capture that opportunity by having a bigger conversation with the customer. Because we find that when you're getting into the nitty-gritty, specific pain points, specific point products, there's nothing wrong with that, but your opportunity stops there, right? Versus starting bigger and talking about transformation, validating that the market says things are changing and you're going through transformation in your business, we're finding that's a great place to start the conversation.
Thank you. So we set the stage, we know why it's happening, so now we validate it with the customers, and by the way, here's the elements or requirements. Oh, and by the way, all the customers are thinking about it, everybody's in agreement. Now it's really important. What is a key tenet of transformation? It's always on. And all the applications are important. The way that a lot of us have sold, the people that have been selling it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, is we've been going in and we've been saying, oh geez, what are your most mission critical? Well, let's do DR against those. And the rest we'll do something else for. Right. Well, that's not the way the world is. And the conversation now is everything's important because everything is end user customer focused. In a digitally transformed environment, it's all important. And so now what we have to do is not sell them, I want to protect the top 10% or 15%, but how am I going to protect your organization? It needs to be always on, it needs to be always available. IT resilience. And you'll see here in the IT resilience, in our language, we're pretty careful about it. Accelerate the transformation, so align with the customer, and while protecting what we've been doing, hypervisor-based replication, protecting the business from disruptions. Remember the disruptions that Zeev was just talking about? So it's aligning where they're going, aligning our core products with the disruptions, and, pardon me, with the protection, and then protecting from disruptions, okay? And disruptions happen, as Zeev was mentioning, in two ways. He mentioned proactive and reactive. Call it planned and unplanned. We've been doing that for a long time, okay? And so you have to protect from those sort of things that you don't know are going to happen. Somebody deleted a file, the server crashed, my data center went down. So you need to be able to take care of that. But then more proactive. And that is the mergers and acquisitions that Zeev talked about. Oh, geez, I've got a cost-cutting thing that's going on. I need to consolidate data centers. I need to close some data centers. I need to do some sort of things with my infrastructure. Those are planned. So the IT resilient system needs to be able to accommodate both. So now we've set the stage, and we've set the reasons why, and we set the criteria for what it is. Now let's talk about dominance. Oh, and by the way, Gartner says Zerto is a leading provider of, and here's the important piece again, we're not getting away from our core. A leading provider of enterprise disaster recovery, what we've been doing forever, plus IT resilience. So Gartner's saying Zerto is the choice for this. And you can back it up because when Gartner was building out their IT resilience sort of metric, they put in critical elements. Zerto hits all of them. So Gartner says we're good, and here's the data to prove it. So now what we've done is we've took the customer through the entire process of what they need to be looking for and what we're going to provide for them. And then it's just not Gartner saying it. It's proved out in our ecosystem. Thousands of customers globally, 350 plus of the world's best cloud providers, the dominant cloud providers, and an ecosystem of 1,100 partners organizations. So your customers have a lot of experience to draw from in the industry. And then also, as Zeev mentioned, the partnerships that we're building and the sort of relationships that we have, those partners, the major key vendors that are in the industry, the HPs, the IBMs, Microsofts, they've either partnered with us or have standardized on us as their IT resilience and or disaster platform. Is that making sense? Anybody have any questions? I'll pause there.
Actually, I want to add something on the Gartner report if you guys are not familiar with it. Gartner's done a lot of research and validation on kind of the creation of the IT resilience market. The snapshot you guys saw there was a bit from their IT orchestration automation survey that was done a little while ago. The report is available for you guys to use in your own business cases with your customers. So if you're not sure where to find it, reach out to us. We'll provide that too. And also, just a sneak peek, Gartner will also be coming out with an IT resilience Magic Quadrant later in the year. So expect, hopefully, some good news from us on that part too.
Okay, so we've set the stage, we've got an understanding, we're talking to our customers, and now you, depending upon your experience, you've been really at this point sort of going into the architecture. This is sort of our new architecture slide, and I'll walk through how to work with it. Remember what we come out with in 2011, hypervisor-based replication. What is that? Well, that is the core of our product. And the way to use the slide is bottom up. CDP, continuous data protection, is the core of what we do. We're not deviating from that. It is absolutely still at the core of our product. The CDP is the thing that equates to what a lot of you are selling on, and that is RPO of seconds. The CDP is the thing that is the base tenant for everything else. It allows us to protect the VMs. It allows us to protect the applications. And now it allows us to enter into the other area that Zeev talked about with Zerto 7, and we can start to talk to the market about it, and that is long-term retention. Right? So we can set the stage so that we can now start to have the conversation, what Zeev was just saying, and that is we're changing the way we're protecting data. And then we move up the stack, and we get into orchestration. And the orchestration you've been selling as the RTO in minutes, recovery time in minutes. But what that is really important and powerful for is that it talks to the new sort of multi-cloud, hybrid cloud solutions, got stuck there, hybrid cloud solutions that customers are looking for. That orchestration layer is what's going to say, I have a certain data set here, and I need to recover it over here. I need to choose the workload destination to go from source A to source, not to source B, but to source target B, but to target C. The orchestration layer is going to be the layer that allows the mobility, application workload mobility and portability. And then on top of that, the really important aspect for all of you is as you're trying to get your customers to, one, do DR with you, but probably more importantly, to choose them to have primary data inside of your cloud, and then to replicate it to another target, either in your cloud or maybe to a hyperscaler. That's the automation layer where you can tell your customer, oh, by the way, and you can see all the data. So at the top, the analytics layer, that analytics layer is going to allow the customer to be comfortable because they'll be able to see what their data is doing. You'll be able to consult with your customers about where's the workload supposed to be working right now? Where's it supposed to live right now? And the customer will be able to see where it exists both at source and target. So that is the essence of sort of the new message that Zeev just walked through. And I'll pause there again, and does that make any sense, or does anybody have any questions?
Since we have quite a number of partners who've been around for a while, this is a different way of looking at the architecture, right? It's changing the conversation from the nuts and bolts of how to really the platform discussion and the foundations of the platform that enable you to deliver your Powered by Zerto resilience service, or whatever you're going to call it when you package it up. Does this make sense? Are there any questions on how to approach this and position it with your customers?
Okay, so I'm a good teacher. Okay, so
Don, maybe just, what's interesting, two things that is always interesting to me, and we heard it in Zeev's keynote, the three customers that were on stage, the Atlanta Braves, the Kesson, and Bain Capital, and this longer-term retention piece and how new age backup use cases are very different, right? Think about ransomware. Maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it would have been fine if you had some type of outage to have 24 hours of delay in bringing your systems back up. But in the situation of ransomware, CDP is always going to be a better solution for ensuring that you can be back up and running quickly. So the traditional backup use cases are changing, which make the opportunity for you to go back to your existing Zerto customers and say, let's deploy longer term retention. Really great conversation to have. And even talking to, I don't think he's here in the room, but one of our cloud service providers from Australia earlier today, he's like, the customer conversation has changed. First, the customer was coming to me and saying, oh, I just want to try out the cloud a little bit. I have most of my stuff on-prem. What can you do for me? Then it changed to, I'd like to offsite my replication target to you guys and see how that goes. Now it's, okay, great, that went really well. Now I'd like you to actually host my production applications. And now even further, where multi-cloud comes in and cross-cloud comes in, is, okay, can you broker a conversation with me to understand how I leverage other clouds? So I think the conversation has really evolved And this hopefully helps elevate that as you approach new customers and deepen your conversations with existing customers. Is that a question?
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, the long-term retention, you and I talked a little bit about it.
Yep.
How about the NFL mandated that all teams have to have long-term retention, and they haven't mandated how to go about doing it. Along with that, they're also talking about having multiple off-site copies for backups. Again, they're not mandating how to do it.
Sure.
New Orleans Saints is a customer of mine. They're currently a Zerto customer. They love it. We're talking to them about long-term retention and then multi-cloud. They're going to present that back to the NFL, just as here's a technology that answers your solution. So I've got to trying to figure out how to take this message back to them to get that up to the NFL.
Yeah, so obviously it's the IT resilience message, fine. We need to protect that data, New Orleans Saints, and we need to get that out of the floodplain. Okay, we got that, okay. So we'll put it up in Pine Hill or something like that, okay. Don't ask me how I know where Pine Hill is. And then also, remember the story about the other NFL team that happened to be in Florida, that they saw the hurricane coming and they had to put it into the cloud. All right, that's the discussion that, okay, now we have a tertiary place that we can put this. And then from long-term retention, to get this 7 seconds to 7 years, you leverage the other techniques. The technique we have today is our, if you will, offsite backup. We're enhancing that in the coming releases. And what we can do is we can start to put this together so we can have a multi-site sort of replication, leveraging what we have today, plus what's coming out in the future, right? So I don't know if that answers the question, but it's how we start to broach the long-term retention with what we have right now, okay? So that is the new messaging. And what I like to do is because a lot of people are still familiar with what we've been talking about for a while, and none of you are really privy, or very few are privy to this new messaging until today. What I've done is, remember how I said this slide goes from the bottom up? I'm gonna start from the bottom up again, but I'm gonna go through it in reference to the way we've always done it. And I like to do this with customers that I talk to, or even other providers that I talk to, because it helps crystallize where we're at. And Mariah will talk about it in a second, but these are all still valid slides. We have 3 modules to the new deck. When you go up into the portal, you can download the one that I just did. And then you could also download the ones with sort of the more architecture technical content. That's what this is. And to tie this back, this is the CDP portion. This is the portion that says, we have, and here's how our software is architected. At the management layer with our ZVM, with the VRA, the replication appliance inside the hypervisor, going from the left to the right, source to target, and a lot of the value that you're going to see with it. Most notably in highlighting are journal-based recovery at the target side and lower right. And all the same techniques that you are probably selling today of the ability to roll back to any point in time and recover still exist. So if you have an unfortunate event at 11 a.m. and you need to roll back to the rights right before that unfortunate event, 10:59 and 47 seconds, you could do that. And you could do that with our journal, the window into our journal. The ability to pick any time based upon your choosing, or a point in time that you've tagged in some way. Some sort of quiesce period, some sort of VSS period, whatever it is, some sort of snapshot period. Choose it and move on. So now what I just did is I covered off that CDP component about the slide. And also, not only can we do it for the VMs, but we can also do it for the applications. The ability to set your SLAs at the application layer so that your customers can be protected within whatever service levels they need, you can do that. Multiple SLAs per customer. Different SLAs between customers. Okay? And the ability to recover independently. We take that up to the automation layer. Remember the new architecture slide? Now we take it up to the automation layer. What's the automation layer say? The orchestration layer say? It says, start a restore event. Request one. Then go in and choose what you need to recover. Do you need to recover a VM? Do you need to recover a folder, a file? Choose that, and then move on over and execute on it. The RTO in minutes. Yeah?
How mature is this across different public clouds?
The question was, how mature is it across public clouds?
This function.
So the ability to go from, let's say, hyperscale 1 to 2, or between,
On premises to the cloud, this recover individual files and folders in minutes. That functionality is just curious.
quite mature. Yep, we've got it working in a number of places. Right? It's not like it's a new technology. We've had it for a couple of years. Okay, so the ability to go from on-prem into the cloud and then instantiate in the cloud in a hyperscale, rock solid. Okay.
And the files and folder piece is there as well.
Do we have complete file and folder? I'll ask Jay or Steve. Complete file and folder at the cloud layer?
Not 100% today when you connect through a ZC.
Yeah. So not down to at the VM layer, yes. At the file folder layer, we have to check on which hyperscale you're going into. Okay, because the hyperscales are different. All right, so I can't give you a ubiquitous answer. Go ahead, Connie.
So this file journal library, is that completely going to make available the self-service pool for customers? So at this point in time, it has to be that.
So the question was, and Steve, I'll let you answer the question on the ability to do journal level file recovery, and if that is available natively or through a portal.
By the way, just as a quick introduction, Steve Carbonaro, who's sitting in the back, is the head of our cloud architects team. Don, over the last year, has really built out a pretty awesome support structure, both on the sales and the tech side. So Steve actually has a ton of cloud architects who hopefully you guys have talked to quite a bit. So Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the real thing is and we can kind of go offline here a little bit and take you through exactly how that works. But it is all orchestrated through the portal.
Did that answer your question?
So there's the Zerto self-service portal that kind of any customers have access to, but there's admin
Just real quick, when we do the questions, just raise your hand and we'll come over with the mic so everybody can hear. Sorry.
So I was just asking specifically for the restores if customers can do it through the Zerto self-service portal, which is one interface into the ZVM. It looks like at the current point in time, you can only do it from the admin backend. That's what my question was about.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so the ability to do it through the portal as you're requesting, right? We'll have to get on a timeline on that because I know that it was on a roadmap.
Just to be clear, the self-service portal is the portal that's built into the ZVM for multi-tenant environments to give customers access to do their own testing and failover. So the ability to do their own individual file restores through the self-service portal is not built in yet. It may be accessible through the API to build into your own portals, but the customer would have access to do a restore from the source ZVM if they're replicating from their own infrastructure inbound. Okay?
Thanks, Jason.
So now we've taken it through the concept of the CDP layer, the orchestration layer, and then finally ending at the analytics layer. We have full analytics to give a view for you and your customers to what's happening in the environment. We can do it through our clients, and we can also do it through our SaaS application, okay? And then we wind up the story with the taglines, best protection on earth, built for the cloud, and simple. And so that is the message and how to deliver it. Are there any questions on that or about the technology and the products? Because certainly like to answer anything here. Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
Let me just try. Thank you.
Todd.
So this question is about that analytics portal. So the way it works now, it looks like it's kind of tied to our licensing. Is there control that we can give it to the customer so they have a login and they only see their site and our site, or more kind of granular permissions in that?
Yeah, so that is, so I don't know the status of that, but Jay, if you've got the latest status on.
It was on the near-term roadmap.
Yeah.
So right now with the analytics portal, all of the service providers today have access to see their own data, but it's not designed to give individual customers access to see their analytics. So based on the Zorgs as an organization, as a container for per customer, if you're using Zorgs in your infrastructure, we'll be using that as an identifier for the customers and building that feature set into the analytics portal. I believe they threw up some versions in the advisory board session yesterday. I think it was 6.5.
Yeah, 6.5. So we're already going down the path, Connie, of trying to get that done. We're trying to get it so that and I don't know if you're familiar with the one-to-many and how that's all rolling out, but we're trying to get a similar sort of situation where the customer will have a login to get their analytics from what their Zorg, as Jason just mentioned, is, right? So you fact check me on this one, somebody, but you got to support the Zorg, all right? Got to be registered so that I can see it, so I can apply and I can tell them this is your data, okay? And we just have to get a time frame on that roadmap for you, okay? Does that make sense though? Right? Because I know that you can see the whole thing, you can do it for your environment, but what we want to do is want to get the customer to be able to see that. Customer, of course, for whatever sort of access you give them, will be able to see analytics as they currently do, right? Yeah, there sort of is. So they're done under NDA. So the timeline of all of our roadmaps is done under NDA, with our providers. So you got to talk to, in your case, I guess, Jenny, and we got to get an NDA, make sure that we're all set. And I think by the nature of our contract, we do have the NDA, and we can share roadmap items with dates with you.
You're going to see the roadmap tomorrow. You're going to see the roadmap session and the keynote tomorrow from Rob Strechay at 1
It might
o'clock.
not have all the dates that he's looking for, but that's fine. Yep.
Hi. A lot of what those slides showed automation. The sort of the middle section, automation was one of the two big points of it.
Yep.
What types of automation do you see like pushing to be attractive to customers? Besides maybe just testing, like what can we give in the sense of like we can automate this and this is something that you want?
So there's a ton of automation that we're actually working on, and the RESTful API is the key on that. And another thing that we should probably do is if you're interested in it, we probably should put you in touch with a guy named Justin, who's in our product, and I don't know if you know Justin, okay? But we've got a whole list of things that we could do. What sort of automation can we do? Well, we can sort of automate a checkpoint so that we can take the checkpoint for testing purposes. Some of the stuff that you may or may not be aware of is some integration with a product that we've done some work with called Synovi. And Synovi actually is another orchestration tool that can go in and inject streams into our API so that you can do things like security test, pen test, et cetera. All right, you can, obviously, once you quiesce something, you take a checkpoint and then you can automate its instantiation. You can probably do a lot of things with that. You can also automate and just do the failover test and then have it kick out the report so that you can see how long the VMs took to recover, so you can go back to your customer and give them a report of how long this one takes, et cetera.
I have a question. For the SaaS-based platform you have, are there any APIs available so that we can just integrate into our portal rather than waiting for Zerto to build one?
Yeah, that's the whole point, right? The whole point is that the moving to an API structure is we want you to actually build your portal. I'm sure that CVT or Steve, whoever, you can actually use that for your benefit, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That came up to one of my cloud architects last week. We have a customer up in Western Canada, and part of the requirement of doing business up there is that they need to provide a French and English portal, right? So they want to orchestrate and automate and build their own portal as close as they can get. Now, you can't do everything with the APIs that you can do with the Zerto GUI, but you can build a portal in any language you want. You can rearrange the buttons. You can do all kinds of fun stuff. It's a matter of going through and using the REST APIs and some of the PowerShell stuff to kind of build it. I'd be happy to put you in touch with my cloud architect who's working with the folks up in Canada. They could help you do that. There's also a session, I think someone over here was asking about what can we do from an automation standpoint, what can we do from a scripting standpoint. There was a session earlier today that Mike Nelson ran on API scripting and automation. I believe that session's going to run again tomorrow. Please check your schedule and see if you're really interested. Mike is a rock star with doing this stuff. He'd be happy to have you attend the session and also take you through some of the stuff at the end of the session if you had any custom questions.
Anybody else? Okay, so now, Mariah, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh, I'll find what the name of that session is later and come grab you.
See if I can get it.
So I'm going to reorder here a little bit, excuse me, but I want to take a minute and just basically talk about how do you take this and turn it into practice for your own business. You're obviously having lots of conversations with existing customers, conversations with potentially new customers. So you want to understand how to evolve your message. So let me just scoot around here for a second. Okay, so Don, I like to call the king of customization. He really walked through a highly customized version of how to approach not only positioning resilience, but also how to root it back in and ground it in architecture. But I want to talk to you about what's available to you in order to customize your own conversation with your customer. So there's actually 3 new core presentations to Zerto corporate messaging that I would highly recommend if you don't already have. Delete what you got now and download the first 3. And I want to walk through them real quickly. So module 1, and I'll kind of walk through some of the flow of that in a minute, is basically a business level introduction to IT resilience. So it's in part that first section that Don showed. This is all about the market, right? What's happening in the market, what's leading to transformation, what has created this environment where we're now looking for business resilience, right? Module 2 is a very cool module where you're actually going into 9 key use cases and getting a deeper dive into those. So for example, if you're walking into a customer and you know that they're doing, say, a merger or an acquisition, download the, I think it's called consolidation and migration slide from that, and customize your presentation to the specific use case that the customer wants to speak to in the discussion. And then the third module is more of what you're used to. It's our architecture module. This is really great if you're walking into somebody who's a little bit more kind of savvy on the tech side and wants to understand how are you achieving resilience. It's more of the architecture that you're used to seeing. It goes nitty-gritty into the features and functionality. Now, I also want to point out on the number 2 use case, I mentioned before, we know that your business is not just DR, you do a lot of other things. Module 2, and talking about the customer-specific use cases, is an awesome opportunity to customize with additional services you wrap around those use cases. And the number that you're seeing on the screen in that little red section there is we actually did a study last year to validate what our products and services attach is with an independent analyst firm, ESG. And our partners, we found out from our partners, a lot of you guys get anywhere between 6 and 10x on services and product attach leveraging the Zerto product. So use this not just to tailor your conversation with the customer, but also wrap your own services around it, right? You guys each have your own service. Some may show that Zerto's under the hood, some may not. This is really just foundational for you guys to be able to fully customize the conversation with your customer. Now, I want to actually take a minute and go through Module 1, because when you think about your conversation with your end client, it's really about telling a story, and there's a very intentional story to how we formatted Module 1 to make it easier for you guys to have that conversation. And the first section is all around the scene setting. And I think I've kind of hammered on this one a little bit. Again, what's happening in the market? Validate that you know the transformation they're going through. And this is also a great place, too, that if you haven't already done full qualification on the customer, this is a good place to say, hey, what kind of transformation is your business going through? What are you doing? What are you seeing? Are you purchasing a company? Are you expanding data centers? Are you consolidating data centers? Are you doing migrations? Do you need to prove that you're compliant in DR? All these types of things. This is a great opportunity to do that initial qualification. Then in Module 1, it goes through basically the IT challenge. And this is very much that conversation of you're going through experiences where you have both planned and unplanned downtime. And what are the challenges that are introduced with that transformation you're experiencing? And the fact that for them, even as a customer, they have their own end clients too. And those end clients, as Eve was talking about earlier, expect an always-on experience. That's changed the game for them a little bit. Then it introduces the solution. And the solution is not a product message, by the way. We haven't even talked about product at all yet in this first module. This is really about the introduction of the IT resilience opportunity. What are the use cases that's driving the need for resilience in these customers' business? And the thing to note on this, and Don showed this on his slide too, is there's a ton of validation here. You see quotes from Gartner, you see quotes from IDC. Anytime you can say, don't take my word for it, it's always a more powerful story. So this is also a good place too to customize with your own customer case studies and things like that. And then your fourth section of this new intro to Zerto, intro to resilience, is the first time that you actually talk about why Zerto. And again, depending on your offering to the customer, you may customize this a little bit, but it basically goes through the different use cases and the pillars that we're looking at that make up the resilience platform: continuous availability, cloud agility, workload mobility. So Don, I wanted to ask you too, your team has been putting this into practice for a little while.
Yep.
What's the experience been like in up-leveling the conversation and starting broad?
Yeah, so we've got real, Zeev even mentioned it in the talk, we've got real world examples in the last several weeks where we've gotten into a lot bigger opportunities, over 1,000 VMs. We've just closed one that was, let's call it 1,050 VMs. It's been really good about elevating the conversation and not going after the sliver that is, oh, let's talk about the mission critical ones, let's just get those off the street, but going in and saying, let's talk about the business applications. It's been good.
Any tips and tricks you can give on the customization aspect? You obviously had kind of a merger of all three. As you guys get in here, you can pick and choose based on what resonates with the story you want to tell. Any tips?
Yeah, so the way that I sort of laid it out there was to set the stage, well, like I said, set the stage, what the market is, align with what your customer is. Now, Module 1's going to help align, and you can pull pieces from what might be important for this customer. Number 2, set the stage for the criticality of the entire organization, and that's the Module 2 sort of stuff. Module 3, let's get into some more of the nitty-gritties, and then let's pull and I like to use the full-blown version of the architecture slide because it has all the talking points on there with the CDP and the orchestration automation. So once you get in there and you download them, you'll see all the different sort of tips and tricks, but I like to go in through the set the stage, the industry, the platform, the IT resilience platform, why it makes sense, and then validation, and then go into the architecture. So I'll ask Jason if he has any thoughts, or Andy, any thoughts on some of the tips or tricks that you have, because those guys are in the field more than I am.
Yeah, I think for me, it's always about tailoring the messaging in a way that's the customer is going to be able to relate to. So it's really critical to identify the use cases that matter to them and understanding what the customer needs are and where they can see a synergy. We're trying to align IT resilience to their core values rather than sell a DR as a service, which is instead it's reactive, it's an insurance policy, it's I want to pay as little as possible and hopefully I never need to use it, whereas IT resilience is aligned with their growth, their core values and their initiatives. So they see us as part of their strategy to be IT resilient and to participate in the digital transformation. I think I threw in like 20 buzzwords by accident. Question?
So as you're doing that, where do you guys really bring in some of the competitive analysis? Because I think that you look at business applications as opposed to critical, and that's what I deal with. I'm in the finance industry, and I'm saying a lot of times we're going to put the critical stuff on Zerto, and the rest are going to go over to Veeam or something like that. So where is your competitive analysis and your advantages to bringing the business applications over as well, and some of that data that we can use to help with that message?
Tactically, I have a couple of comments I'd like to add there, but I think what might be important too is what are your recommendations from a positioning aspect when, like he was saying, you're kind of telling a larger story now, but there's a lot more players in the space, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna. Yeah, thanks. I was just gonna say that. We are. So first of all, to acknowledge your point, there's a lot of people that are coming after us, right? And they're coming after us with a message of, "Me too. We're just like Zerto. We're good enough, and we're at 1/8 of the price." Right, so totally get that, totally acknowledge that. I was at a lunch with Paul Van Hefty at US Signal, great provider up in Michigan, and he can shed some light on that if you're comfortable. But I think that, I think that we are starting to see less and less of, hey, I want one tool for this and these tools for that, right? Because when you're providing the platform, sort of to Zeev's point of, if it's production, they want to have one common platform that protects it. And we are starting to see this validated in the industry. Don, to your point, I just got an email about 20 minutes ago that we just got a signed contract for 4,000 VMs over 4 years. It is starting to happen, and it is starting to resonate. Now, they may not buy 4,000 up front because our software does come at a premium, but the days of, hey, let's give Zerto 10% and Veeam 90%, we are starting to see less and less of that. And PVH, if you're comfortable sharing that story you told me at lunch, it just really crystallizes the message around the 10%, to Zerto and the 90% to everyone else, where it can fall short very, very badly.
Yeah, I think some customers are finding that what was 10% a few years ago doesn't necessarily cut it for their business today. And the specific example he's referring to was a healthcare system. Their monthly budget is $100 million. They got over 1,000 people in IT, and they had a massive outage at one of their main campuses for their SAN. And their EMR platform, I won't name it, but it actually was protected. The problem was all of the middleware and systems that feed into it were not part of that 10%, right? So here's their major EMR platform that's up and running with no data, no customer patient visibility. And so effectively the healthcare system was brought to its knees because they hadn't properly evaluated where that 10% really fell, right? So I think that there's a lot of opportunity in a full resilience platform to provide value and look at the dependencies. Zerto makes it much easier than a lot of other technologies to group those things together. So, when you have the visibility into the people in the process, then you can tack on the technology like Zerto, whether it be perpetual licensing or through a cloud provider, to kind of build that holistic suite of protection. And that's when you have the true resiliency, not just some replication, not just some backup. Is that what you were kind of looking for there? Sure.
Yeah, it's an elevation of the conversation to exactly that point, to get out of to get out of that sort of, checkbox sort of Olympics, and to get into the discussion that he was just talking about of, let's talk about the application. Because when you start to talk about the application and you start to say, I'm protecting something over here with these guys and something over here with these guys, trying to get those two back in line is probably not going to bring the business up. That being said, there is, if you go into the partner portal, there is some sort of competitive sheets that you can
Yeah, there's lots
look
of
at.
resources available if you do get into a more of a bake-off scenario. We have competitive comparisons. We also have tools like our business case builder, where you can actually create a fully comprehensive business case that shows the ROI back to the customer based on what they're trying to accomplish with their applications, like Don is saying. And the other thing that I would mention too is have them try the product. As a cloud service provider, you guys may or may not offer trials, but depending on how you position your Zerto service, just have them test out the product. We find in a lot of situations it helps mitigate the conversation pretty quickly as well. And I think that actually kind of folds in nicely to just coming back for a second for why IT resilience, just to recap for a moment. Because we've talked about a lot of different components of this. You heard it from Zeev, you've heard it in some other sessions, you heard it from Don a little bit. If you think about why IT resilience when you're having the conversation with the customer, the first thing is workloads are more complex, they're more mobile, they're more accessible from different areas. These customers no longer want all these point solutions in order to solve unified challenges, right? And I'm sure in a lot of cases for you guys too, you don't want portfolio complexity either, right? You want simplicity in how you offer your own services to your customers. So that drives the need for resilience, right? The second is the need for traditional DR replication and long-term retention. We're seeing it converge because the backup use cases have changed, right? I talked about ransomware earlier. The reality is just they cannot afford to be gone that long, right? So we're seeing a lot of customers coming with that use case that I think creates a great opportunity for conversation on kind of the top and lower tier applications. And then the other thing, and you guys are really leading the way here, is the acceleration of cloud adoption. You see it in 3 amazing use cases, right? You have customers who are just purely migrating to the cloud. You have customers who are using the cloud for DR. You have customers who are using the cloud for backup. So to come back to your question a little bit on competitive as well, is if you flip the script on the conversation and you first start with what's the transformation your business is going through today and tomorrow, and what components of these things are you doing today and do you want to accomplish tomorrow that cover all these use cases, right? Replication, orchestration, automation, backup. If you start high, it makes it much easier when you get into that kind of nitty-gritty conversation to talk a little bit more about their overall IT strategy than just DR, for example. Does that make sense? Is that a question over
Question.
there?
1 second.
There was a slide that had mentioned the automation and orchestration software piece. Is that going to be something that's going to be baked into the portal eventually, or when the new product launches? It was
Sorry,
pretty.
which?
It was pretty early.
This one? Earlier? Do you know which one he's talking about?
IT resilience management software.
This one? Sorry, what's the question? Can you repeat? We getting there?
Go the other way.
Go the other way. Okay?
So what's the question? Keep trying to look for it. Keep drilling down. The question?
Just yell stuff. Here?
No.
One before.
That way? Or the other way?
There. Gartner.
Da-da-da-da.
IT resilience management software. Is that with the orchestration and automation
Sorry, I
pieces?
can't.
Are those going to be kind of delivered with the new platform?
Sorry, we can't quite hear you.
So-
Jason, do you mind repeating?
So the question is IT, so here, reframe the question.
Right, so the IT resilience management software piece, right, which now adding automation and orchestration, how is that going to be delivered? Is that going to be a part of the portal?
Yeah, no, so yes and yes. Native in the software, all right? So all the sort of automation and orchestration stuff that you currently have just native through the GUI continues, and then we're enhancing our APIs to allow the portal and the self-service portal to be automated, or to include more sort of knobs to get there, okay? So that's an evolution of the product. Native in the GUI, evolution of the portal.
IT resilience is a shift in messaging. It's transforming the customer's perspective. It's pushing them out of their comfort zone a little bit to shift their way of thinking. So Zerto as a product has the orchestration and the automation built in already. We've had that for years. The shift into IT resilience is really getting the customer to think more about IT resilience as a way to manage disruptions, both reactive, which was the old disaster recovery as a service, but also the proactive, which is what's happening in their business every day, whether it's a merger or an acquisition, whether it's a data center consolidation. These are all planned events, a cloud strategy. So what they look at this solution as an IT resilience platform, the different budgets open up, their way of thinking shifts, and they see this as a strategy to enable them to deliver that IT digital transformation back to their customers and focus more time and energy on that and less time on disruptions. So this is a way to be more strategic with your customers. It's a way to shift their thinking from just the 10% of their machines being mission critical to any application that they're actually supporting and investing in is business critical. So we're seeing customers going from considering protecting 50 VMs to 500 VMs because all of their applications are business critical. So
Thanks, Jason. And from a licensing standpoint too, any of our customers who are on our ECE license, our Enterprise Cloud Edition, the plan right now is any new features that are rolled out will be included in that licensing. So it's not new product, right? So we're at time, but I do want to at least end by showing you guys where to get the resources we talked about today. So if you go into the partner portal, zap.zerto.com, click on the first tab on the left-hand side called Partner Essentials, and then it's just going to be Position IT Resilience in Zerto. You can download the modules we talked about today and download a whole bunch of other resources, turnkey toolkits for email, the business case builder we talked about earlier. So I want to thank you guys, and Don and I will be here as well as the team if you have extra questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everybody.
it. Enjoy the rest of the day.